The corrections for the next Show What You Know, which included an adapted read from The Emperor's New Clothes and the poem, The Schoolboy. The Emperor's New Clothes, after you read this passage and read the question, you were able to see that it had to do with not only this passage, but the one that you have just read, your last Show What You Know, which was Wise Young Girl, a Legend from Russia. And after listening to those answer corrections, this should have been no problem in order to know what the correct answer would be, since there's only one question with this passage, and it refers back to the last one. Which idea from Wise Young Girl, a Legend from Russia, is illustrated in the excerpt and adapted from The Emperor's New Clothes? So what did these two passages, what was the idea that they both shared, that they both had in common? A, an adult ignoring the wisdom of a child in order to protect his pride. B, the competition and rivalry that exists between royalty and those in poverty. C, an authority figure denying reason and logic in order to maintain his importance. Or D, the value of treating family members with respect and kindness. Well, looking at answer choice A, the adult did not ignore wisdom in the first passage. The king listened to every one of those riddles and he was intrigued. In the second one here, the child that's speaking in line 6 doesn't even, in that excerpt, in paragraph 6, doesn't even talk to the king. He just mentions it to the people around him and his father. So A cannot be a possible answer choice. The competition and rivalry that existed between royalty and poverty, that was only in the first passage. That wasn't in the second. So that idea was only evident in the first one. So that could not possibly be an answer choice. C, an authority figure denying reason and logic in order to maintain his importance. That seems like that would be a good one, because in both, the king did not want to admit defeat, so he kept giving the poor brother more riddles for his daughter to solve. And she kept giving them another, she would return it back with a riddle for the king to solve. Then we have D, the value of treating family members with respect and kindness. That was definitely apparent in the first one between the two brothers, but not in The Emperor's New Clothes. That we weren't even talking about family members and respect and kindness. So after using my problem-solving skills and process of elimination, it would be obvious to me that question 20, that's not what I want to see. I want to see this. I believe in question 20, of course, that of course it's going to be C. And I definitely made note in my question. I circled, I was looking for the idea that existed in both of those passages that they shared. So the correct answer for number 20 is in fact C. Now, moving on to the Schoolboy, the rest of your questions dealt with just that poem, The Schoolboy, but it also mentioned a wise young girl at the end also. So you needed to be able to refer back to that passage if you needed to. But you had that with you, you virtual learners. You could have looked at it on Clever, because it was posted for you. So let's look at 21. It says, what event causes the speaker to feel frustrated when looking at the poem? So looking at those lines of the poem, what were the ones that made him feel frustrated? And we're talking about the speaker himself. So having said that, it says, A, keeping wild birds in small cages. Well, that does sound pretty frustrating. B, attending school during the summer. That sounds pretty frustrating also. That's the word I would have definitely lifted up, paid attention to. C, hearing sounds of hunters hunting animals. Well, it does mention in the poem hunters hunting animals, but it really just says that it's a distinct sound. It doesn't really mention any or allude to any frustration. Or D, being reprimanded by a school teacher. That isn't even in the poem. So I know that possibly cannot be a choice. So I'm thinking the only possibilities would be A or B. And since I'm going to look back at the question when it asks you, what event causes the speaker to feel frustrated? That is frustrating, keeping the wild birds in small cages, but that would make birds frustrated. That's not who the speaker is in the poem. It is the boy who has to go to summer school. So therefore, I believe that the correct answer, of course, is in fact B, attending school during the summer. And that is found in line 6 of the poem. And he addresses that. And I circled in my question the word frustrated, so I knew that that's what I was looking for. And I probably should have circled the word speaker because I wanted to make sure that I knew I was answering that question correctly. Here's 22. Read lines 11 and 12 from the poem. And then you're going to look at the imagery effect. How does it affect the meaning of the poem? We'll get to that in just a second. Let's see here. Ah, then at times I drooping sit and spend many an anxious hour. So looking at that, how does the imagery, how can you imagine that? Imagine what's being written here, described here. I know that I can imagine many students drooping in their desk, and they seem to be very anxious about the end of class coming. They want it to come now because they're done for the day, and I can understand that. But, so having said that, which one of these helps you imagine this, that you can picture that? Does it help you by creating sympathy for the speaker, by suggesting the speaker is unreliable, by creating a controlling picture of the speaker's parents, or by developing the speaker's desires? Well, looking at this, creating sympathy for him, I'm sure possibly he's drooping to sit. He has to spend many anxious hours. Possibly that he's trying to make you feel sorry for him. That's a possibility. B, by suggesting the speaker is unreliable. That has nothing to do with that, so I wouldn't think so. C, by creating a controlling picture of the speaker's parents. We're not even talking about his parents, so I don't even think that's an option. Or by developing the speaker's desires. Well, we know his desires are not to be there because that's stated in the first couple of lines of the poem. But in these two lines in particular, that's not what's being addressed here. So I would definitely believe that the correct answer is, in fact, A. He's trying to create a picture for you so that you will feel sorry for him. So you can picture that image by reading those lines 11 and 12. So 22A is the correct answer. When looking at question number 23, it says, how do lines 16 and 17 contribute to the poem's theme? And remember, theme is the message of the poem. It's a universal message that we can all take away from it. It isn't specific to any characters or anything going on in the poem. So what is the message in that poem? They suggest the speaker is unaware of the way school improves one's life, that they suggest the speaker feels only sadness when attending school. C, they suggest the speaker feels he is unable to thrive if he is forced to spend his days indoors. Or D, they suggest the speaker is eager to grow up and live on his own, going wherever he pleases. Whew, so there's a lot going on there. Unaware, I don't believe the theme of that is with the verbiage that's used in several of those lines. I don't believe, especially looking at, I'm looking back at the poem right now, which of course I would want you to do, but looking back at the poem, I definitely, when he's talking about how he has to go to school on a summer morning, right there on line 6. Oh, and he's complaining and signing. Oh, he's in such dismay in line 10. And then he's sitting drooping in his desk. And then in line 16, he makes a reference to him being like a caged bird. And now how he's longing to be outside, and he feels as though his parents are just, denying him this, and he's in such sorrow in lines 25. So after going back and looking over that poem, it appears that the message to me would not be A, or that he doesn't feel just sadness about attending school. It's a little bit more than that. It said maybe C, they suggest the speaker feels he's unable to thrive if he is forced to spend days indoors. That's an important word, thrive there. And he's also upset that he has to be indoors because he keeps talking about summertime and being outside. So this is a good possibility. D, They suggest the speaker is eager to grow up and live on his own, going wherever he pleases. Well, he doesn't really talk about growing up and going on his own. He's just talking about his current circumstance of having to be going to summer school. So I definitely felt as though it was, without a doubt, it had to be C, the correct answer. And he just feels as though that he's wasting his days away and he's not able to enjoy the summer and thrive and do run and play with his friends because he's having to be in school indoors. So, and those are the notes that I took with the question. I circled the word theme and then noted that I understood what the theme is, that it's a message. Okay? You're taking your notes, and I hope that you are. Let's go on to question 24. And it is as follows. How does the poet develop the speaker's point of view? All right. A, by contrasting the speaker's thoughts with his parents' thoughts, by using figurative language to convey the speaker's suffering, by using logic and reasoning to illustrate the speaker's complaints, or by using dialogue to express the speaker's conflict with his teacher. I can tell you right now, he doesn't even talk to his teacher in this poem, so I'm going to eliminate D before I even have to go and look back at my poem. So I know my only three possible choices right now are A, B, and C, okay? A, he doesn't even talk to his parents in this poem, so there is no dialogue, there's no conversation that's going on between he and his parents. Now, he definitely mentions he compares himself to a caged bird. He also compares himself to flowers and that are being snipped by the buds, and buds are ripped and blossoms blown away. So I know that he is not a flower and he is not a bird. And so it's obvious that there's some figurative language that is being used in this poem. So there is no logic and reasoning because he's using those other expressions in order to convey how he's suffering by having to go to summer school. So definitely he doesn't use any reasoning. He uses the figurative language. So having said that, and using my process of elimination and just making note of going back to my poem and making sure that that figurative language is there, it is obvious the answer is, of course, B. All right, we're almost done. We only have two more, guys. Hang in there. So question number 25. It says, which set of lines from the poem supports the answer to part A? That he uses figurative language to convey his suffering, because that was our answer for 24. I love to rise in the summer morn when the birds sing on every tree. Well, that's pretty literal, okay? So there's no form of figurative language being used there. B, under a cruel eye outworn, the little ones spend the day. Eighth line, okay, lines 19 and 20. But droop his tender wing and forget his youthful spring. And D, oh, father and mother, if buds are nipped and blossoms blown away. So this is him pleading to his parents about this situation. So it seems to me it's pretty obvious that C would be the correct answer, but let me check just to make sure, because that's the only one that refers to him as a bird. And we know that he isn't a bird. It's not literal. So yes. So that's why I underlined that and that. So we know that, of course, that is A. That's the use of figurative language. All right. And the last question, question number 26. Okay. This question asks about what you read in both the passage, a wise young girl, a London from Russia, and the poem, The Schoolboy. It says, what quality do both the poor brother in the passage and the speaker in the poem have in common? Was it A, caution, B, creativity, C, negativity, or D, wit? Well, I think I'm going to start with D. Wit means like to be quick-witted, smart. Well, the poor brother was not quick-witted because he couldn't solve any of the riddles, and he was fretting so about it, and his daughter, who's 7 years old, solved them. And the little boy is in summer school, so that tells me he's probably not very witty, very smart. Okay, were they both cautious? Not even sure that relates to it. I would eliminate that one because they didn't show caution. They were just complaining about their circumstances. I don't believe either one of them. Well, I do think the boy in the poem was creative in the way he expressed himself, but in the poor brother, he didn't have any creativity. It was his daughter who came up with all those creative riddles that she solved, or the creative way she solved them. So it seems as though that C, them both being negative, would probably be the most reasonable answer choice. And so I went ahead and made sure when I looked at that, yes, C, they were both negative, and I wanted to make sure that I understood that we had to make sure the comparison was between both of those passages. So those are your corrections for your Show What You Know, where it began with The Emperor's New Clothes. If you have any questions, just message us on Clever, either myself, Miss McLily, Miss Glass, or Miss Billings.